Hello, I'm George Gonzalez. I'm obsessed with making games, and I'm here because we're going to talk about in app purchases on Meta. But I want to be very specific and to the point on this one because there's only one other video that talks about Meta in app purchases, and it's not outdated, but there's some things that I've learned as I published free to play games on Meta. So if you're trying to get in game currency, and it doesn't matter if you have Playfab or not, but I use Playfab, and I know a lot of people do. So this is what I'm going to show you how to use, how to connect it to Playfab, and some of the tips. These are the currencies that I have for my game, Mystic Rubies, and these are going to be the SKUs. I'm going to match the SKUs to the ID. So that's the first thing I do is to set it up. So that way I don't have to create a dictionary or start looking up different strings. I just say the ID is going to match the SKU on Meta. Okay. So that's the first tip that it'll just make things easier, and you'll see in a second. Um, so we have these, and these are bundles. Yeah, so we're in the bundles in economy, and these bundles will give you the currency. So if I go in here, it's just a bundle that costs nothing. And eventually, I'm not going to put this game on Steam, but I will do a video on Steam with Playfab, and this is how you set up with Steam. But anyways, so you can set up Steam and Meta all in one. Okay, so this bundle can be purchased both in Meta and Steam from Playfab. So that's cool. So let's go into Meta. I'm gonna leave these to the side, and then we're in here in the dashboard on the back end on Meta, and I have my app. Okay, Magic Hunters. You scroll down first before you start anything. What you want to do is let me go into requirements, data use checkup. So before you start, what I like to do, and I have another video on setting these up, you want to make sure that you have all these active and you submit the certification for these way ahead of time so that you have, I know I'm going to do subscriptions, in-app purchases. I'm going to need the profile for the user and the user ID, all this stuff I'll need. And then I added challenges just in case I want to do that. And if you know you're going to use any of these other ones, just add them all at the beginning, list why you're doing it, and submit it. If you need to add one, you can add and resubmit. But you want to do this early on because it takes a little bit. Sometimes it's just a few seconds. So you set this up. Once you set this up, you can go in monetization, add-ons, and in here, we're going to create add-ons. I don't have anything because I want to go through it with you to show you how I do it. So again, remember we talked about the SKU. The SKU is going to be the same as the ones on Playfab. So if I want to make sure I have them correctly, so I'm going to copy paste. And we're going to set it to consumable. So durable is just purchased once, consumables purchased multiple times. So if you wanted to sell specific things and always check when the player logs in, then you don't need to store it on Playfab because Meta knows if the player owns it. And then this is for show and store if you want to create a bundle and actually show it so people can buy it outside the game. So this is going to be in-game purchase, but you can set it up so it's purchasable in-game and outside the game. And so I'll show you how to do that in Unity later. So we'll save this. So every time you make some changes, you save draft, you move on to the next, and this one is the cent. So it's 1. I think that's the lowest price I can set it to test. This is just to test like $1, just in case I want to have some. And here you can have it different currencies if you want for different countries, but usually it's pretty straightforward. And then once approved, it can't be changed for 30 days. So you have to, this is one of the things that frustrates me about Meta is that you can't do like promotional items where you set it at 50% or stuff. So you can't change this. Yeah, so hopefully they'll add that eventually. But so the name is, this is going to be like this is a test. One Mystic Ruby. Let's just say Ruby. I think that's what I call them. Okay. Save draft, and if you want, you can enable this for more. You want it to do more things with meta editing things, but I'm not going to do it. This is all you need. Save, release now. You can schedule for release here and have it to a day. So then we go back to add-ons, and you'll see it's there. It's published and it's set, and it's not set in store. After this, you can't really, you can change, so you can't change the SKU, you can't change the consumable time, and here you can like change these, but I probably don't want that. But again, the price you have to wait for 30 days till you can change it again. The metadata you could change and save the draft, but other than that you can't, and then you can't really delete it. You can make it unavailable. So choose your name, your SKU wisely, because the SKU you can't change. The display name you can. So that's something to watch out for, because if you start, so my tip is For in-app purchases, I prefer to just sell in-game currency and then use my backend to do all the other bundles and stuff, because it's really a hassle to deal with these SKUs and start checking and stuff. So that's my tip. You can sell bundles. People do. A lot of successful uh, games do bundles. It does really well. But just there's some things that are Meta. Sometimes this dashboard, Meta sometimes decides to change things and doesn't tell you anything about it. Like they'll, for some reason, it'll stop working. Like for example, the beta features are not working, and then sometimes the drop down doesn't work, or like your bundles might not be working, even though you've changed nothing. So let's go into do another one. We're gonna just, it's pretty straightforward. Add one. We're gonna do the other bundle. We're gonna do bundle, consumable, save as draft, pricing. This one is going to be $9.99. Set it up, save as draft. Mystic rubies. Oh, 2,000 mystic rubies, 2,000 rubies. And this has enable advanced metadata editing is mostly for, like if you want to put in the store, you can put images with the bundles so that it shows nice images. Okay, so now that we have this, how do we set it up in Unity? And I want to show you really quick how I set it up, because I want to give you an overview of how everything works and how it's supposed, what Meta's checking for, so that you don't go through like, oh, why is this not working? First of all, I have a loading scene that I like to, you have to go through entitlement first. So Meta has to entitle the app. That's the main one, the entitlement, but that has to be before this in-app purchase check. So always check that before you do anything meta-wise. Once that's done, you can check in-app purchases. So what should you watch out for? So one thing that you need to be aware of, even if you just do in-app purchases on your game, like you're only wanting people to buy stuff on your game, you still have to check before the game starts for in-app purchases, because people can gift things they already bought. So if I buy these mystic rubies in the game, I can use my phone, my app, to gift the same mystic rubies I just bought to my friend. Okay, and so because of that, you have to go in here, and I'm going to show you. It's not all done, but the way I set it up, it's called Playfab in-app purchase, because Playfab is the backend. Okay, so if I were to do Firebase backend, it would be better if I did Firebase _in-app class. And the reason why I do that and not Playfab and then Meta and do Meta in-app purchases, you'll see in a second, is there's a lot of back and forth between the backend and Meta that you have to do. And so before I've tried to split it where they're both in like decoupled, but the problem is that the interactions are so intertwined that it's better to keep it together. So I know with a single responsibility principle, usually you want to decouple as much as you can, especially if you're like, well, what if I want to do Steam and Meta? Like even that, like you can do all of it in here. So I would do it this way. It's just as a advice, because I've done it before. I usually separate it here, and you can do in here, compile the code, like do Meta only specifics, because in this one, I only have Meta stuff. So I don't care, but you can put this for when it's an Android build, and then do Steam for specific PC builds. So you can do that. But for now, we're talking about Meta, and so this is one of the big watchouts, because the only other YouTube video that has in-app purchase doesn't mention anything about all this stuff, because most of the time, most of the tutorials come from just the documentation. They read the documentation and they give you what the documentation does. But I've had experience publishing and using these APIs live and having things screwed up. So I know that most of you that are coming here are fall in mostly two categories. One, you're trying to learn. You're trying to set it up for in-app purchases. So you're Googling and trying to figure out, hopefully you found this video, or you probably found the other video that's more views and older. But so if you are enjoying these tips, please like and subscribe so that these videos do come up and help other people too, because I'm trying to give information that's accurate, not necessarily that's inaccurate, it just is not complete. And so I'm trying to give you everything that you need to know about in-app purchases. So I want to clear up something that I forgot to mention in the video about the two people that would be watching this video. The other group that I was shout out to is those that are struggling, that have these like in-app purchase failed error codes. Most of the time, some of these come from in here and here too. But I've had this where we have the launch checkout flow and the consume purchase, and things are just not working right. So there's a lot of people that go through this, and there's other in the forums, and I've struggled. This is me 3-4 years ago, and so that's the other reason. The other group of people that I'm making this video for is those that are reaching out to Meta and can't get an answer, right? Because most of the time they're like stuck and they're here, and someone's like, "Oh, Meta says we recommend checking out the forums or the documentation," and it's just like, and so that's mainly why. And sorry that I forgot and I spaced out and I kept talking, but I'm trying to correct that. The other group of people that I do this for is those that are stuck in the forums, wondering what Meta is and why documentation doesn't give more information. And that's why I'm here, is to give that information that I feel like it's missing to the public. And so I'm trying to give you everything that you need to know about in-app purchases. So again, in Meta, you'll need to check what the player has bought before even joining the game, because they can have stuff bought outside, okay? Whether you do it or not. Meta already does it for you without you deciding, okay? So what I do is, if I'm in the editor, I just don't do anything. I have this callback where I do a function and I wait for the return. Okay, so in this scenario, if it's not in the editor, it'll go through and it'll check the in-app purchases. And what you want to do is go through all the items that the player purchased. And this is one of the things that I don't like about Meta, is that these items in here don't have, like this purchase right here, I can't check if the purchase is consumable or durable. Like there's no, the API doesn't tell you. So what you basically have to consume every item, because the durable items don't get consumed. They just give you an error. Okay, so what I do is I just consume every item, and then here I would just grant the package. Okay, so and I still have to work on this to make it work correctly, because the problem is that these will launch super fast, right? So you have to, in here, I would save all the SKUs in a list and then go one at a time and wait till the purchase is gone, like the Playfab grants the item one at a time. Because in here it's going through for each loop, and then I'm saving the SKU where I could just send it through here. But because I have to wait for Meta to give me the okay, then I can grant the package. Because I don't want to grant the package if there's an error, because then it will just keep giving the player infinite amount of stuff if they just keep coming back and forth. So the better idea is to grab the SKUs that you know are consumable and give it to the player. And in my case, there's only 3, right? The in-app purchases, the rubies that are in here. So if I go in here, these are the only things I have to check. And that's why, again, I don't like doing more, because when you do durables, this list will hold those durables forever. There's no getting rid of it. Durables exist on the player's profile forever. You can't delete them. You can't get rid of them. And so it makes that list bigger and bigger as you go. But if you wanted to check the durables, you can go through here and check the SKUs one by one. But again, Meta doesn't have an API to check what's durable and consumable. You just have to either know yourself and do like a switch statement, or check another list. So for that reason, I just don't deal with it. And in this scenario with Playfab, I have where I do the purchase item through Playfab, and I do the callback if it's an error, or update the game. In this case scenario, I update the game and I give the player, hey, I add the in-game currency manually, so I don't have to read it from Playfab because I already granted it. So I just add it to the player. Anyway, so that, and this is a temporary add. It's not like it's just for the UI. So that's like the heads up. Okay. Now we're gonna go over the stuff that you are here for. Okay, and I needed to preface that so you understand like what you're getting into. We have this SKU, right? SKU to consume, or a SKU to purchase, let's say. And we have the callback like we did. And here we're gonna start. We're gonna do platform SKU, or we can pass it through. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, so we're gonna do platform SKU, okay? And then we have this start meta purchase. Okay, so the way we have it is that we have this in-app. If you're using Unity Oculus platform, and here we go down here. Okay, so in-app purchase, launch, checkout flow. This is all documented and it's set up in there. So you'll find this. The problem is that oftentimes when you find these items, what will happen is that Meta asks you to read the strings. Okay, so when you set up the UI, you're gonna, for example, you're gonna set up a UI that will have, you'll want to check against all the SKUs and then display all the UI text for like, oh, this SKU is there and it costs this much and whatnot. Don't do that. I've run into like 90% or 80% of the problems with Meta come from trying to read the UI from these SKUs. Like you grab the list of all the SKUs in the store, and then you grab the cost and the price and whatnot, and then you want to set it up all nice because then it'll give you the specific country and how much it costs in that country. I just hard coded. That's why I only do 3, and I hard code the currency and I say this bundle is this much in US dollars. When you click on it, it'll come in your country's thing. So I just do US dollars for this bundle. The reason why I do that is because sometimes when you have a developer account, it'll say 0.01 cents and it'll sell it for that sometimes. And sometimes that's buggy. Like I've seen players that are on the beta channel get granted stuff for 0.01 cents. And so for the sake of like bugs and getting rid of stuff, because you'll see this, if you Google in-app purchases on Meta and you go through the forums, on the old forums from in-app purchases, you'll see a lot of people getting errors. I get this error, what's going on? And Meta just completely silent as if it's supposed to work. Trust me, like if you just cut and don't read any of the strings and you make sure, say, okay, this is the string of the SKU. I want to hit buy, and you go straight into this check flow. Okay, that will save you 90% of the headache. Okay, hard code it, hard code the numbers to the. You can't even do the promotions anyway, so like there's no point in checking the price because you can't change it. So I thought when I first did it, I did all the stuff like it was said, like check the list, and then you have like all these things that you have to do just because the API is very poor for the in-app purchases. There's not much, and so you end up checking strings against strings, and there's no, like, you don't know which one's consumable anyways. So there's a lot of errors and bugs that can happen. And to avoid all that and having to wait for Meta to try to give you support, which doesn't exist, just do that. Hard code the numbers, put it in whatever currency you want to put it, dollars or whatever, but make sure it's apparent. When the player clicks, it'll be in their own currency. And if you need to do a disclaimer, you can do a disclaimer, but just be aware of that. It's not the best thing. Yeah, ideally you want to grab the string that has the cost and write it in the text. The problem is there's a lot of bugs with that. And if you're in here, it's probably because of one of those bugs that you're having problems with. So save yourself a headache and just do this. A button that has the SKU hard coded in, and you send the signal to say, hey, buy this SKU. That's it. I already copy pasted the SKUs, so I already know the 3 SKUs. There's nothing else I have to do. Okay, so we do this, we do the checkout, and then make sure there's no errors. If there is, I usually that's why I have the callback to, hey, give you the string. Also, Meta gives you the weirdest and longest string for the error, and it doesn't say anything. So I'm gonna give you another tip. Again, all these are things that I've experienced. So if you wanna pause here and copy this, I had to like figure this out and I think I might have used ChatGPT to help me, because holy cow, I had to parse the message so that it would give out the actual message. So in here, I like go through a pattern to take all the stuff, the fluff, and actually give the error message, because Meta doesn't even give it to you. It is bizarre, like that this stuff is not just done right. And if you've dealt with Meta, you know it is happening all over the place. But anyways, save yourself trouble, use this, and it'll give a nice message to the user. Funny thing is, in one of the VRC, sometimes they complain. They say, "Oh, the error message is unreadable." It's like, I'm printing out the thing you guys gave me. Like it's so crazy. Anyways, enough of that. We'll go back. Okay, so we're gonna buy again. We have it hard coded. We're gonna buy, and then we're gonna actually. This is the other tip. Okay, with consumables, because it's a reoccurring thing, there's 2 steps. When you're consuming the item, the first check is, do they own it? Okay, so Meta will do the transaction on their end. The player will either buy or cancel. If they cancel, it won't grant it to the player. Okay. Once the player pays the money, like when they pay, they say, okay, this will go through and it will not give you an error. If it gives you an error, when it cancels, it goes through here. Now it goes through. Okay, so now Meta gave the player the item, but that's it. So it's our responsibility now to say consume the purchase. So now we have to consume it. Okay. Because if you don't consume it, it's going to stay in the player and the player can't buy it again. Okay. It's just the way they've set it up is kind of like as a check. So you consume it. Once you consume it, then you can grant the package. If you grant the package before consuming it, then you'll have a lot of problems. Because the player will try, if they try to buy it again, they'll say that they can't. And so that's why at the beginning, again, this is stuff that no one talks about. And no one does in-app purchases because it's easier to just sell a game from it. But if you're trying to make money, you want to do in-app purchases. Anyway, so Oculus checking out purchase. So that's why I do the front end, the check at the beginning, because you need to check it. Because if there's a mistake, you need to clear that so they can buy again. Again, you don't want any friction with the players. Okay, so we have that. Okay, so we're here. We're consuming. We grant the package. So how do I grant the package? Again, you saw this before. We virtual currency, MC, I believe it is. Or no, it's something else. Let me check. It's AC now. So I got to make sure I do that right. So in here, this is the currency. And so Meta sees that it's $0. It's going to grant it. You can do it through the backend too. You can, if you don't have Playfab or you have something else, you can just go straight through the backend and do the granting. So the player doesn't have access to the APIs or whatever. And then I update the game with a SKU if I need to. Usually I do this to save bandwidth. I mean, it's just like pennies. But I just like, I don't like the redundancy of like every time I grant the package to have to go back to Playfab and read it. But you can do that because then this will, if there's an issue, it will update the currency correctly. In this scenario, I just hard code it to give the currency. Okay, that's the only difference. You can just say read inventory and then load the inventory with the right currency. But that's it. The main issue that I wanted to give you is the list. Don't go through like reading the list from all the SKUs on Meta and try to debug it that way, and the prices, because you're having to parse all that information and you have to figure out a lot of things. I know, and you can do it if you want. There's a YouTube video on it, but just know that you're gonna run into problems even when you're already done it and it's working. You're gonna have a lot of headaches, and I'm trying to save you time. Again, that's all. It's pretty straightforward when you skip loading the SKUs from Meta. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up with the UI side of it. I have a recording where I have this plus button up here to get more currency, but I'm gonna switch it up. Okay, so I have this button because this is in VR. It's really hard to go like to try to hit small buttons. So this UI is just to get stuff done. I might do it differently, but for now I have this UI box trigger. And so all I do is on trigger event and physically do it myself instead of a raycast, and no physical buttons. So it's kind of like a compromise in between the two. So I have this bundle button that it will swap, and then in here I have a controller, and I need to add this button right there. So now this is what grays out the buttons. So as I switch between tabs, it'll grayed out, and then it will set the tab to the specific one. So I have this currency tab that I'm going to show you. I did it ahead of time. I really don't like doing UI that much, so I just like just put in boxes and call it good for now. And we have each currency. Like I told you, I'm going to hard code these. Like I showed you, I'm not going to read the inputs because there's a lot of issues, and it's hard to debug. Even though Meta has ways of debugging it and giving you like fake credit cards, it will accept it every time. You can make a test play, a test user on the backend. If you guys like me to do that, I can do that. I can show you how to do that. The only thing, it's such a hassle, but you can do it. You just have to use the app, and you have to log out of the app and log in into that test user in your headset. So it's super annoying. And if you add a second user to your account, like you have two accounts that you can swap back and forth, there's also bugs with that. And so again, like I try to avoid a lot of features that Meta is like always switching up because they're new or they're old and they're outdated, and Meta doesn't care. And so it's really hard to debug all these different issues because it's not your fault. It's Meta's headset in-app purchase stuff and like the different accounts. Okay, so the best way, if you're gonna set up a user account, you need to set it up and then just log out completely, create a new account, and use your phone and log in, and download the game and play with that account and put that fake credit card that they give you for accepting, and then the other one for rejecting, so you could test it out. I test it with a 0-1, so I always pay 1 cent, which is annoying, but I just do that because it's easier. So developers, if you're a developer for your app, these purchases, no matter how big or expensive they are, it'll be 0-1 cent for you. Okay, so you either pay a cent or go through the hassle of creating an account and do it for free, or for the most part, I know it goes through because it's hard coded. Whereas before, when I have the list of stuff, I have to buy all the time to test it, and so at that point, yeah, you want to test a user account. Okay, but because I hard code it for the most part, I know everything goes through, and I do it in the editor most of the time. I can see that most of the values work. The other thing you can do if you have it on Steam, Steam is super easier, so much easier because you have Sandbox, and when you buy it, it won't charge your credit card. So they have a Sandbox method that you can use, which is really nice. So hopefully, once I show you that, I can't show you in Steam, but I can show you how to set it up with Playfab, and it's really nice. But anyways, we're talking about the UI, hard coded, like I said before, and I have these buttons. Again, these buttons you'll see in the video, they have a hold feature, and there's the SKU hard coded right here. And you remember that from the beginning, that's the SKU that's on Meta and on Playfab. And so what I do is I just use that SKU all throughout. So that way the SKU matches the Meta and it matches Playfab. I don't have to do any checking for this SKU is this value and this bundle or whatever. It's just the same across. Okay. And then I have a hold time and a hold sound effect. So what happens is when I hit buy, you'll see that it'll fill up like a progress bar. And so it's a nice thing for holding, because when you buy, you don't want to accidentally like click and then be like the pop-up comes up. So that's what I got to do with all these buttons that I said I'm in the middle of doing, is really polishing a little bit the buttons, because if the buttons are like clicking all over the place, you start like the player doesn't know where they are and why they're going any place. The other thing that you can do is a pop-up that says, are you sure you want to do this? I prefer the hold because that way you don't have to deal with multiple pop-ups and stuff. And it makes it, I hate UI. I don't like doing UI. So I'll do a hold feature and it solves the problem, because if they're holding it for 1 second, then they're committing. Now, if people are like, oh, well, maybe 1.5 seconds is better. But sometimes waiting for longer than a second, it's kind of annoying. 2 seconds is almost too much sometimes to hold it. So that's that. And here I have this in-app purchase presenter. And all I have is a scriptable object. This scriptable objects, I'll link it below. If you have questions and you want to know more about what this is, there's 2 places to find it. So one is on one of my videos where I do a Marble Snap type game, a card game. I have a specific chapter where I go over all the details of the plugin, or not plugin, but the event channel. The other place you can get it is Unity has a game called Chop Chop, and they have a bunch of videos on how to make games, and it goes through the development process of Chop Chop. And in that example, they use the same technique where they use scriptable objects to use as event channels to raise events and signal. And so what happens here is just, this is just a signal, and I usually try to name it that so I could know what it is that is signaling. So this is a string with a callback event. It describes it, yeah. So what happens is you send the string and you have a callback. And that's what I do. And so the callback has a Boolean and a response, a string. And so what happens is when the purchase comes through, it either succeeded or not, and it gives me an answer as to what happened. And it'll either give it to you or it didn't. Something went wrong. And so I have this pop-up manager that displays things, and I can say display it for 10 seconds instead of 5. So 5 is for like a super short response. Like, hey, this happened. Okay, cool. And so this is pretty straightforward. And I usually, at VR especially, I have this Boolean I always use the moment something's pressed so that it doesn't trigger it multiple times, because that can cause issues. So I make sure that until this is done, it won't let you do anything again, just in case. And then that's pretty much it. So this purchase is an event, a scriptable object that's an event channel. And then when you, I'm gonna make sure I hide all this stuff back. And then when we go in here, this is one of the, I have a bunch of listeners, and these listeners are all those scriptable objects. So what happens is these are the listeners that are waiting in case someone calls these event channels. And so this is the real world purchase. And this is where we make the connections. So instead of having to drag and drop references and functions, let me show you. So instead of having to reference these, what happens is this calls the real world purchase in here. We're going to go the app, real world purchase. And in here we have the string with this call SKU and the action callback. So as you can see in here, in the listeners economy, I have the real world purchase. And here, I can go in here and do that. Okay. So it's super handy, especially because I can assign functions, and if they match, it works perfectly. So it makes sure that the function is correct. And in here again, that if it's doing a purchase, I'll make sure that it waits till it's done. And if I'm in the editor, I don't do the meta stuff. And then I do the meta purchase that we talked about earlier in here. And so this is why it's such a pain to test the checkout flow, because you have to do it on the meta. So these are one of the things. That's why I want to make this video. And it might be a little bit long and boring at times, but I want to make sure that you see the code, understand how it all connects, and some of the tips that I have, because it is a pain in the butt to test back and forth, only to find out, oh, I forgot this, or I forgot that. And so now you know the whole process from beginning to end. And I'll show you a video of how it works and see it in action.
Okay, here we go. We're in the game now, and I'm going to show you in-app purchases. So we have this button up here. Maybe I'll change it somewhere else. But for now, that works. We have the different currencies, and I can purchase that. Okay. And then if I cancel it, it'll say that the purchase was canceled by the user. And I'll probably have to change how the background is handled, but it's working.